All right, the baby heard I'm starting, so the baby started crying. But most important that there's a mezuzah campaign going on in which we are offering 50% off your next mezuzah. So some of you may have uh, one mezuzah. Some of you may, you're supposed to have a mezuzah in every single door. The reason why we're focusing on mezuzah is because the Torah says if you will have a mezuzah, what happens? Leman yirbu yameichem, in order that you lengthen the days of your children, b'nei v'neichem, and your grandchildren, al ha'adama, on the land, asher nishpa Hashem elokechem lavatechem, that God, your God, has promised to give you. So by the mitzvah of mezuzah, not only does it protect us, but it clearly says it protects us in the land of Israel. By having a mezuzah, we will add extra protection to our brethren in the land of Israel. So if anybody, please put up an additional mezuzah, or if you know someone who needs a mezuzah, or sometimes you may have a mezuzah, the scrolls can go bad after many years if you want me to check it. But if you already have one on your front door, on your bedroom door, you can put on your garage door, you can put on your sliding door. Ideally, there should be a mezuzah in every door, but I'm offering 50% off for the next, at least one more mezuzah for you. Of course, you can buy more, full price, but 50% off the next mezuzah. Okay, so I'm just going to mute everybody here. Of course, you can unmute at any time. Today, you're going to be following along the screen because these letters, I said we're going to read letters of the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, regarding charity. And specifically charity to Israel. And I said they're in the Tanya. What do I mean by the Tanya? The Tanya is technically the first book that we're reading, the book, speaking about the war and the animal soul and the godly soul. But more broadly, the Tanya actually can refer to a 5-section book written by different sections of the Alter Rebbe, different treaties. So we have what we're reading is the book of In-Betweeners, as you may call it, the book that discusses the war within us. But there are 4 other sections of the Tanya, in a broader sense. It's kind of like the word Torah, right? The word Torah can mean, the 5 books of Moses can mean something broader. Similarly, the word Tanya can mean the book of In-Betweeners, or it can mean more broadly the 5 sections of the Tanya. And one of the sections of the Tanya is a collection of letters that the Alter Rebbe wrote. Not all of his letters, but many of his letters. And the Alter Rebbe wrote a collection of letters discussing specifically giving charity, and within charity itself, very much so talking about giving charity to the land of Israel. The Alter Rebbe established one of the oldest Israel charities today called Kolel Chabad. You may have seen the name Kolel Chabad. They advertise in a lot of places. They have soup kitchens all over Israel and everything. But that was established by the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, in the year, we're now in the year 5783, right? 5783? 5784, sorry, 5784. So that was established in the year 5537. So over 200 years old, this charity. And not only did he establish this charity, but he actually made it mandatory for all of his students to give towards the fund. So again, he established a charity and he said, if you want to be my follower and you want to show up here and be allowed in, you have to give towards this fund. And he was very organized about it. As an aside, this is one of the reasons that he was imprisoned at one point. Those who didn't like his teachings went to the Russian government and went to claim, oh, he's sending money to the Turks, right? The Russians and the Turks didn't get along. So since the Alter Rebbe was sending vast amounts of money towards Israel, they said he's supporting the Turkish army, and how can you trust him? Of course, he wasn't sending to the Turkish army; he was sending to the Jews who were in Israel under Turkish rule. But the point is, he had a very vast, elaborate system, and he made it mandatory for people to give, and he even gave people the amounts that they were supposed to give. So you can imagine, they went through your salary or whatever you made a year, and they'd say, all right, you've got to give, $2,000 a year towards the Israeli charity. You can imagine, as most of us, when you have to give big lump sums, it becomes very difficult. It's very difficult to give big lump sums. So the Alter Rebbe then established people can give monthly or weekly in order to build up to give their charity. And just like today, the Alter Rebbe had to be a fundraiser. Just as today it's hard to part with our hard-earned money, and we all have a lack of money as well. And you can imagine the Jews in Russia really didn't have a lot of money. And here the Alter Rebbe is demanding of them to give charity, and it's very hard. And so the Alter Rebbe wrote a series of letters to inspire them, and to be able to give charity. So we're going to read a couple of those letters, and we're going to start with letter 21. I'm going to share it on the screen. And so again, this is giving you the backdrop. He made this charity, and he made it mandatory on all the students to give the charity. But nevertheless, the people still needed inspiration. Like any fundraiser, you need to inspire people to give. But the Alter Rebbe's inspiration wasn't by selling people plaques, right, and offering them dinner recognitions. This is a different year and a different time. He inspired them with Torah thoughts and ideas that are relevant for us today as well. So let us read this first letter. This is again from the Tanya Igeret HaKodesh, which means the holy letters. And we're going to start this letter over here. So he starts like this: having first duly inquired after the welfare of those who love God's name. So again, basically, you start off a letter, you say, how are you doing? Okay, so that's what he was writing to them. He first wants to check, how are you? And he describes them as people who love God, because obviously loving God is going to be important when it comes to what he's going to talk about. But in addition, he writes over here, Israel is called the land that God is always looking at it. It says it in the verse here to tell us what the verse is. The verse is Deuteronomy 11:12. So Deuteronomy 11:12 discusses that Israel is a land that God's vision is always upon it. All right, so he tells them like this. I don't know how the number 21 got there. He says, to those among the people willingly volunteer to practice the righteous charitability of God towards his holy land by giving every year a set sum of money for the inhabitants of our land, may it be rebuilt and established speedily in our days. May my word call to them and my speech trickle like dew, in order to bestir those who are naturally swift, for one hurries only swift. So what he's saying is like this. He's talking to the people, again, who are supposed to give a yearly amount. And he's saying, these are the people that I'm talking to. And he's saying, not only am I telling them to give the charity, but this is an important part of the letter, Lazares Lizareason, to be swift. In Judaism, there's a big emphasis, not only in doing mitzvot, but doing them swiftly, doing them quickly. There's many statements in the ethics of our fathers about zrizin magdim and the mitzvahs. We should be doing mitzvahs swift. Why? Because when you do something quickly, it shows that it's something that you really want. You're not just being forced to do it, so you have to do it, right? Just for example, people ask me, Rabbi, should I do this mitzvah in the morning, right? Or maybe it's tefillin, maybe it's a prayer. Should I do it in the morning? Well, so what else are you doing in the morning before you do it? That's the question. Are you catching up on all the news and making sure you've texted everybody and answered all your emails, and then you're going to pray? The idea is that we don't want mitzvahs to be a burden. We want it to be joyful. We want it to be the first thing that we do. That's with any mitzvah. Okay, we're going to discuss charity specifically, but with any mitzvah, we want to show our eagerness in doing it. So whenever possible, you want to do it first thing in the morning. Of course, sometimes it's not possible, or you get up too early to pray first, But in general, mitzvahs should be done in a way that we do them first. So he's going to talk. He's talking to the people to give charity. First of all, he wants them to give it very swiftly. He wants them to, first thing they think of, right? So imagine they get money. He wants them to first think of the charity they're going to give, right? Not the projector they're going to buy or the flat screen TV they're going to get. Then he adds another line, and to strengthen weak hands. In other words, obviously, he noticed people were having trouble giving the charity. So he wants to not only tell people to give quicker, but also some people who are having trouble actually giving it, not just giving it quickly, but giving it at all. He wants to give them inspiration, as he says, so that they should contribute money to the land of Israel every week, or at least every month, from the amount assigned for the year proportionately, as well as all the dedicated money that each individual was inspired to donate annually without a vow for the support of our brethren who live in the Holy Land. So here he's saying, in addition to the money that I'm forcing you to give, also money that you'll give additionally to that amount that I'm telling you that you have to give. See, now he's going to talk about the importance of giving with alacrity, giving promptly. So he says like this. For first of all, everyone knows the great virtue of alacrity with respect to all commandments, which is spoken of repeatedly in the words of our sages of blessed memory. For example, at all times, a person should be prompt in fulfilling a mitzvah. So I spoke about that a moment ago, right? So the Alter Rebbe is saying, first of all, you should be giving charity promptly, because every mitzvah should be done promptly. It shouldn't be the last on your priority list, right? You have to give it the moment that you can. Now he says like this, he's going to add, and he's going to add an additional proof how the power of being prompt is a very powerful idea. And he says like this, so too, it is the merit of the eager promptness of our father Abraham, peace upon him, who hastened to the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, that stands by us and our children forever and ever. For the Akedah, the binding of Isaac itself, which God constantly recalls, is not really regarded as so great a test in relation to the stature of our father Abraham, peace upon him. So here's the thing. This is what he's talking about. He's again proving how alacrity is so important. We know one of the primary features of our prayers every day, we say it every single morning, and throughout the Yom Kippur and holiday services, is the binding of Isaac, right? The famous story, God told Abraham, sacrifice your child on the mountain that I will show you. Abraham and Isaac went up to the mountain. As Abraham was about to slaughter his child, God told him, stop, I was just testing you. And from that time on, we mention that in our prayers multiple times a day. But here's the question. The question is, what's so great that Abraham listened to God and was going to sacrifice his child? We understand it's great, but he's not the only one in history. In fact, unfortunately, many others have done so. Unfortunately, in the last 70 years in Israel, we've done so in a certain extent, people sending their children to war. But we have ancient stories as well. Hannah and her 7 sons, right? In the story of Hanukkah, there's a famous story. There was a woman called Hannah, and her 7 sons refused to bow down to the idol, and they were all killed in front of her. And many, many stories of Jews giving up their lives for God, many times in Masada and other places where they killed each other just not to be given over to the hands of the enemy. We should be mentioning all these other people. You know, why Abraham only? So there's different answers given to the question. That's a famous question. The famous question is, why do we keep mentioning Abraham's sacrifice? He's not the only one. And especially when you consider, as he says here, Abraham's high stature, right? If a simple person did it, that's something special. But Abraham's high stature, I don't know. Then he adds like this, especially concerning that God himself said to him, please take your son and bring him as an offering. Meaning, so many Jews have sacrificed their children throughout the years without God coming to them directly. Here, God came to Abraham directly, spoke to him face to face, told him, take your son. Well, is it a big wonder he listened to God? Right? But the sacrifice the Jews have done since then, sacrificing our lives for God, for our religion, has been without a direct command to us. So what makes Abraham's sacrifice all that great? What's the great merit? Now, one answer is, of course, that he was the first. He was the first, but still, we have to understand, as he says here, even if he was the first, but as he says here, if God asked him directly, all right, he was the first, but it's, you know, you got a direct command from God. I mean, it's kind of hard to refuse. He says like this, after all, there have been numerous saintly individuals who gave their lives for the sanctification of God, even though meaning God, did not speak to them. So here is his answer. The point is that our father Abraham did this with wondrous alacrity, for as the verse testifies, Abraham rose very early in the morning and himself saddled the donkey in order to demonstrate the eager desire to fulfill the will of his master and to bring gratification to his maker. In other words, the great sacrifice of Abraham was not only that he did it, but that he did it with alacrity. In other words, he ran to do it just as he ran to do any mitzvah. Now, this is not that Abraham was callous. In fact, we are told, it says that that Isaac was blind in his old age. The commentaries discuss how did he get blind. One of the explanations is that as Abraham was holding the knife over Isaac's head, tears fell from his eyes and fell into, others say it was angels, different explanations, but one of the explanations is tear fell from Abraham's eyes and it blinded Isaac. Abraham's tears blinded Isaac. So we understand Abraham loved his son, He wasn't just callous towards his son, unfortunately, like we may see by the terrorists, where it's all about getting heaven or whatever. He was not callous. He loved his son. He was crying, but despite his crying, he was doing it with alacrity. He was doing it with speed. Now, God willing, should never be tested with the test of Abraham. But think about that. Is that Abraham was willing to do anything for God with the speed necessary, without any delay, even something as difficult as this. Imagine us. What are our difficult commandments? The things that are difficult for us are nothing like that. And how much more so we can do them with alacrity as well. Again, think of simple things. It could be your prayers in the morning. It could be your charity in the morning. It could be lighting your Shabbat candles. Whatever it is, we should try to make sure that our priorities are set straight, and the priorities towards God should come first, and we should show an eagerness to do it. So all this is to give us more inspiration to do mitzvahs with alacrity, as the Alter Rebbe is going to add, especially the mitzvah tzedakah. So he says like this: indeed, it was from the example of Abraham and with the power that he vested within all his descendants that our sages of blessed memory learned that alacrity is required. Okay, I'm not going to comment on the chat, but it's I hear it does remind me when I was in Israel, one of the tour guides kept saying grandchildren is the reward for not killing our kids when they were teenagers. But anyways, obviously it's a joke, but you get the idea. Okay. Indeed, it was the example of Abraham, and with the power that he vested within all of his descendants, that our sages of blessed memory learned that alacrity is required in the fulfillment of all the commandments in general, and in particular with respect to the act of charity, which is superior to them all. So this is what his point. He's saying, if all mitzvahs require alacrity, then charity, which is the greatest mitzvah of all, surely should be done with alacrity, right? Now, who says the mitzvah of charity is the most important of them all, superior? Well, we have different sources. I'm not going to delve into it deeply, but whenever the Torah talks, whenever the sages say mitzvah, without giving a definition for that mitzvah, they're referring to the mitzvah of charity. Let me see if the footnote here gives anything. Not that it has to, but I'm just curious. Note by the Rabbi. Okay, all right. So there's a note apparently. Okay, anyways. So the point is that if all mitzvahs have to be done with alacrity, then surely the mitzvah of charity has to be done with alacrity, especially since charity is greater than all the other mitzvahs. Okay. The Tanya explains elsewhere mystically why charity is greater than all the other mitzvahs, because the mitzvah of tzedakah is done with money, and money really elevates your entire life, right? The world revolves around money, right? So when you give a part of your money to charity, you're, so to speak, elevating your entire personal world. And so in a sense, charity has the ability to elevate your entire world, right? Because if you're taking your hard-earned money, which is what you work for 8 hours a day or whatever it is, and giving some of it to charity, that reveals that really all your money is for the godly purpose. Now he adds an additional idea. Charity is not only superior than all the other mitzvahs, but he adds, in that it protects and saves ones by its fruits that are repaid in this world and from all kinds of calamities that may come about. So there's famous stories, many stories. There's the famous line is that tzedakah tatzil mimavet. Charity will save us from death. There's a story brought in the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva's daughter. Rabbi Akiva was after his daughter was born, he was walking by, I think, some necromancer, somebody stargazer, and the stargazer told him, you should know on the day of your daughter's wedding, she's going to die. And the Rabbi Akiva, put it in the back burner of his head, but he always knew it, and he was very worried about it. But as Jews, we don't believe everything the stargazers say. Well, Rabbi Akiva's daughter got married, Baruch Hashem, and she survived. But the morning after her marriage, she woke up and she saw there was a dead poisonous snake right next to her bed. What happened was when she went to sleep, she took some pin out of her head and she stuck it in the wall, but it was dark, days before lighting, so they didn't see anything. She woke up in the morning, she saw that where she stuck the pin, she stuck it right in the head of a snake and killed the snake. So clearly she saw that she was saved from a death that was coming her way. And so she spoke to her father, and her father asked her, tell me, what did you do on your wedding day? She says, well, as everybody was busy preparing for the wedding, a poor man knocked on the door, and everybody told this poor man that, sorry, we're busy preparing for a wedding. Come back to us a little later. And she said, but I felt bad for this guy, and I got him a plate of food and sent him on his way. And the Rabbi Akiva said, aha, from here we know, tzedakah tatzil memavet, charity saves us from death. That's just one of many, many stories. And so charity has the ability to protect. And as it says here, charity is one of those mitzvahs that not only do you get reward in this world, but you get reward in the world. Not only do you get reward in the world to come, you get reward in this world. In other words, some mitzvahs are very spiritual, and the reward for them are only going to be after we pass away. But charity, we are rewarded not only in the world to come, but also in this world. And that's what he means, that the fruits are repaid in this world. In other words, not only are there benefits in the world to come, but there are benefits in this world as well. So if charity is so great that it's superior to all the other commandments, it can do elevation other commandments can't do, and you get rewarded for it in this world and the next, and it will protect you, and of course protect Am Yisrael, then surely it's something that should be done very quickly. You know, who doesn't want a little extra protection in their lives? And certainly right now, as we think about our brethren in Israel, who doesn't want extra protection for our brethren in the land of Israel? So surely the Alter Rebbe is saying, if any mitzvah should be done quickly, the mitzvah of tzedakah should be done quickly. And again, he was trying to inspire his people who were going to give the amount at the end of the year. So don't just give it, but give it with alacrity. All right, so here he quotes, that is written in the verse, Utzedakah tatzil memavet, tzedakah saves from death. Just curious, where's that quote from? That quote is from Proverbs, okay? And how much more so from other kinds of suffering that are milder than death. Notice he's making a point. Charity not only saves you from death. If charity can save you from death, surely it can save you from lighter punishments, right? It doesn't mean it only saves you from death. It saves you from death. That's the most severe one. It saves you from even things that are less, injury or other stuff. See, let's see this. It is thus certainly to our benefit, even in this world, to be as expeditious as possible in the giving of charity, even more so than in the fulfillment of other commandments, whose reward may not be as palpable in this world. In other words, if you're ever inspired to do something quickly, surely charity you're going to do quickly. You'll be inspired, not just for some spiritual benefits, but for a benefit right now. And as he adds an interesting line, Adam for a person is judged every single day. As he says here, this is from the Talmud Rosh, and I want to explain this. What does it mean we're judged every single day? You're like, Rabbi, we just, we're goody-goodies for, 10 days, 15 days. We were just goody-goodies for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. You're telling me I get judged every single day. I thought I got signed, I got sealed, I'm good, right? I'm good, right? No? We passed Yom Kippur. As long as we're good for 10 days, we get a good year. So the Talmud explains that no. We're actually judged every single day. What does that mean? When you're promised, whatever you're promised in the beginning of the year, let's say it's written in the books, you're going to make $100,000 in the year. How that $100,000 gets to you is based upon your merits and your actions during the year. And in fact, Hasidic philosophy even explains it's possible if you don't have enough good merits, those $100,000 may not even come to you fully in a physical format. Remember, blessings are spiritual, and they have to trickle down to this world. And sometimes they can be translated in spiritual and not physical blessings. And so we get judged every single day. So in other words, like this, if it's decreed that you're going to make 100,000 in a year, you can't make more than that. But you could make less than that. Okay? You could make less than that. That the blessing may not fully trickle down to you. You'll get the blessing somehow, but not necessarily in the way that you want it. And so this is why he's saying is that it's important to keep giving charity, because we get judged every single day. We get judged not just once, we get judged every single day. So I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but being good for 10 days a year, it's good, it's helpful, but we need to be good every single day. We're judged every single day. Again, not life or death, but how those blessings that you got in Rosh Hashanah, how they'll come to you, that's the daily judgment. Okay. Now he says something interesting. He's going to read like this. The reason given until this point for dividing one's annual pledges into weekly or at least monthly payments was the quality of alacrity in performing the mitzvah. Right? Remember, as we started in the beginning, the Alter Rebbe said everybody had to give a certain amount a year. Then he said it's hard to give a lump sum, so give throughout the year. The Alter Rebbe now adds two further reasons for not deferring frequent payments to one's consolidated contribution at the end of the year. So this is going to be bad for my end of the year fundraising, by the way, but right. A lot of people like to get, okay, that has to do more with taxes and people see how much they can give. But I'm sure Jews are very much into giving daily charity, and this is going to be a great explanation why. So he's going to add again 2 additional reasons for giving frequently. We said number 1 is alacrity. So you got money, give some of it to charity. You got the gift in the mail, give some charity. Now he's going to add every single act of tzedakah refines the soul of the donor. That's going to be one reason. And then B, every single act of tzedakah brings about this eternal union in the Sefirot and Partzufim, which that's a spiritual talk. We're going to explain it. So let us give the first explanation. So he says like this. Indeed, in the service of charity, we have also found a noted a particularly great and incomparably wondrous virtue when the act of charity is performed numerous times. So again, he's saying not only, right, you might think, what is the difference if I give once or I give a big lump sum, right? If I give $1 every single day, or if I give $365, what's the difference, right? So again, here he's saying the Alter Rebbe is referring here not to one's annual pledge, but to the actual giving of numerous increments, which adds up to its total amount. And he says like this, and whoever does so frequently is praiseworthy, rather than at one time and all at once, even when the total sum is the same. Even then, it's far preferable to give the same amount over a longer period on numerous occasions. So again, a very interesting point. It's important to give numerous times, even if it ends up being the same, right? So, so to speak, the quality is the same, the amount is the same, but quantity, you want more quantity. So first he's going to give a explanation given by Maimonides. As Rabbi Moses Maimonides of blessed memory wrote in his commentary on the following Mishnah, taught by the sages of blessed memory, and everything is judged according to the multiplicity of actions as opposed to the stature of the deed. Again, Maimonides is quoting. It says that everything is judged according to how many times you do it. It's a very interesting thing, right? This is from Pirkei Avot. Pirkei Avot says that you're judged according to how many times you do something. On this Mishnah, Maimonides explains that though a one-time donation of, say, 1,000 gulden is truly praiseworthy, the trait of benevolence does not thereby become embedded while a donor's psyche to the same extent as it would if you would give these same 1,000 coins all at once. So let me explain what that means. When you give charity, there's obviously the benefit to the recipient, but there's also a benefit to you. The benefit to you is just like any mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, you're elevated, right? So obviously you give money, that person gets what they need. But also there's a benefit to you. You are, we're talking right now your personal benefit. We'll talk about spiritual benefit, to the world in a moment. Let's talk about literally personal benefit. You become a kinder, a better person. Our actions have an effect on the type of people that we are. It's been proven over and over that if we can get people to do positive actions, over time, we can change their psyche to become more positive and better people. So therefore, it makes sense. If I have $1,000 to give to charity and I give it 1,000 times versus giving it all at once, it's very likely and highly possible that I will inculcate and give to myself each time I do it, more charitable personality. That's what Maimonides says. That's why he says it's important to give multiple times. Anybody has any thoughts or comments on that point? I think I've spoken about it multiple times, but I'm just curious if anybody has any thoughts or comments on that specific point. Giving multiple times is better for you as a person versus giving all at once, because That's why we all have charity boxes in our house. The act of giving even a couple pennies, right? So there are people who give millions of dollars to charity. They'll also put a couple pennies in a charity box every day, because as important as it is that they're supporting great institutions or writing $1 million checks, it's important that they give a daily charity.
I like it. I like it because I think like for someone like me that can't give too much, at least I'm giving a little bit all the time. It'll make me feel like I'm making a difference.
Yeah, good. Anybody else has any thoughts? You don't have to all shout out at once. No? Okay. I was gonna say like this. He says, now apart from the underlying reason for this that Rabbi Moses Maimonides of blessed memory clearly explained, in order to refine the soul by means of multiplicity of actions. So again, that's the first reason. He's saying, in addition to the fact that it changes you, he's going to add another point. And this is a very interesting point. He says, an explicit verse in scripture states that the effect of tzedakah is for life. So again, the scripture says, Pulat tzedakah l'chaim, the effect of tzedakah is for life. So we're going to have to explain what this means. So let's, because simply the word Pulat tzedakah l'chaim means giving charity gives life, right? When you give charity, you're helping someone have life. So let's read what it says here. In his notes and emendations at the conclusion of the Hebrew edition of Tanya, the Rebbe refers the reader to the following two verses in Proverbs 10:16. We find Pulat tzedakah l'chaim, the effect of a tzaddik is for life. And in Proverbs 11:19, we find tzedakah, kain tzedakah l'chaim, so it's tzedakah for life. Accordingly, the Rebbe notes, the Alter Rebbe's citation, three words, Pulat tzedakah l'chaim, as part of an explicit, okay. I see. Okay, this is a side note. We're not going to get into it. All right. Let's go with the explanation without delving. Okay, sorry, I didn't want to take it down a rabbit hole. So again, the simple meaning of Pulat tzedakah l'chaim would mean the effect of tzedakah is for life, which, by the way, this is one of the cool things about Hebrew. The Rebbe is writing that, really it's merging two verses, but the general meaning of that is the effect of tzedakah gives life, right? If you give charity, you're giving life. So we're going to explain it a little more mystically. And the explanation is like this. Just like when you give a physical person charity, you are, so to speak, drawing upon them something they don't have, right? The person that's getting charity did not have food, did not have clothing, did not have housing, did not have money, whatever it is. You are drawing upon them something you didn't have. Similarly, the spiritual effect that we have when we give charity is drawing life into this world. When we say life, we'll mean spirituality, godliness. So this is what he's saying. This means the effect and the mystical consequence of tzedakah is to elicit and draw down supernal life from the fountainhead of life, from the life of life, the blessed Ein Sof, which is God, the infinite light. So again, when you give tzedakah, tzedakah gives life. What does it mean to give life? It will draw down from God, who is the source of life, and it will draw down to us. And he adds another word. Where does it come down? He's going to explain more mystically, la'eretz chaim, to the land of life, malchut of atzilut. I don't know if I want to go on and explain that, but these are the mystical mechanisms through which we get spirituality into this world. So the point is that just as when you give charity on a physical plane, right, the spiritual benefits of any mitzvah reflect the physical benefits. The physical benefits of giving charity is you're drawing life to someone who doesn't have it. Life can mean more generally things they need. When we do tzedakah, spiritually, we're drawing life. And what is life? Life is God. God is life. We're drawing life. We're drawing godliness into this world. And he says, also known as, what is godliness, known as Shechinat Uzeinu, the Shekhinah. I'm sure you've heard of the word Shekhinah, the divine presence. She'aleh Namar, which about the Shekhinah, the verse says, Va'ata mechayet kulam, and you animate them all, meaning God gives life to everything. So through giving tzedakah, we are able to draw down God's Shekhinah, God's divine presence, which gives life to everything, here on this world. And he says like this. The Sukkot David Hanofelat Adafra. The Shekhinah is identified with the Sukkah of David that has fallen down to the very dust during the time of exile. So what is that referring to? Okay, I'm going to explain this one, even though it's a little off the beaten path, because it's something we were just reading on the holiday. So we just finished the holiday of Sukkot, right? And if you read the in the prayer book, the bencher, this is probably backwards, but in the grace after meals, there's a section before, harach amanu yizakeinu limot hamashiach. There's a section of their additional harachamans. So we read like this. We say, "May the merciful one restore for us the fallen sukkah of David." So it's a very interesting line, right? So on Sukkot, we're asking God to restore to us the fallen sukkah of David. It's kind of an interesting prayer. I mean, did David have a sukkah that was blown over by a hurricane or something? Like, well, why are we worried about David's sukkah? What about Rabbi Adler's sukkah? Why don't we pray for Rabbi Adler's sukkah, which is fallen? I actually had this year the holiday. There were some like gusty winds on the Sukkot holiday. Some of my sukkah was blowing off. So what's this prayer we say in the grace after meals on Sukkot? We say, may the merciful one restore for us the fallen sukkah of David. So what is it referring to? So mystically, as he's explaining, so I'm not going to get into the simple explanation because it's the mystical explanation to help us understand the Shekhinah, the divine presence. The Shekhinah, the divine presence during exile, is called the fallen sukkah of David. That's what it's called. Why? What is the sukkah of David? What is the booth of David? The booth of David is the kingship of David. And obviously there is no kingship of David. So we are in exile. Okay? When the sukkah of David will be arisen, that means the kingship of David will be arisen. That means Mashiach comes, right? Mashiach comes from David. So when we pray, may God uplift the sukkah of David, it's really a prayer for the kingship of David. And we're praying that the Mashiach should come and the kingship of David should be arisen. Now, when we're praying for the kingship of David, are we actually praying like, do we care that much about the kingship of David? Obviously, we're praying not just for the kingship of David, but we're praying for the divine presence that shined during the kingship of David. In other words, the kingship of David, it says that kingship below represents kingship above. That's why it actually says when you see a king, if you go to England and you see King Charles, there's actually a blessing to be made. When you see a king, you're supposed to make a blessing. I don't know if you're familiar with that. You see a king or a queen, actually. You see the Queen of England is also prayer. So when you see a real king, you're supposed to make a blessing.
You mean a king of Israel or like any?
So when you see a king of Israel, there's a special blessing to be said. Even on a regular king, we make a blessing. Surely a king of Israel, you make another blessing. So the idea is that kingship below is a reflection of kingship above. That's the idea. Everything in this world is a reflection of something spiritual. As I always say, the Kabbalah or Hasidic philosophy is kind of the spiritual underpinning of the world. It's the spiritual understanding of the world, right? Just as we're doing in the Tanya, we're understanding our spiritual makeup, our godly soul, our divine soul. Just as science discovers the atoms and protons and neutrons, Hasidic philosophy and the Kabbalah give us the spiritual makeup of the world beneath us, or I should say the real, not beneath us, the real existence of the world we see. So a country having their king is a certain sign of their spiritual stature. And similarly, the kingship of David is a reflection of God's presence in the land of Israel. And when the sukkah of David, when the kingship of David is fallen, that means the divine presence is in exile. Just as the kings of Israel went to exile, the king of David went to exile, God's divine presence is in exile, meaning we don't see God's divine presence as much. We all know that to be the case, right? So the Shekhinah, which is God's divine presence, during the temple times, you were able to see the Shekhinah. It says you would come to the temple, you would see the miracles, you would see God's divine presence there, right? Now we don't see God's divine presence. Just as the kingship of David has fallen, God's kingship is exiled. And as he adds over here, He says, as our sages of blessed memory said, when the Jewish people were exiled to Edom, meaning the destruction of the second temple, the Shekhinah went with them. In other words, when the kings are in exile, God himself, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, goes in exile with them. So godliness is in exile. And so which means there's a divine presence among us, but we don't see it. And as he's going to explain, is that through the mitzvah of charity, you can uplift it. And this is very analogous to the poor person, right? What is the poor person? The poor person is a human being, a dignified human being who's fallen, who's lost their dignified place in humanity. They don't have what they need. They need to come to others to beg them. They're asking others for life. Similarly, the Shekhinah, metaphorically, is fallen from its lofty place. It's exiled. We don't see the revelation of the Shekhinah. When we give charity and we draw life to a poor person, we are also invigorating the Shekhinah. We are drawing more divine presence into the Shekhinah that has fallen and uplifting it. And that's what he says. Tzedakah has its effect because the arousal which man initiates below to revive the spirit of the humble, the pauper, who has nothing at all of his own, elicits an arousal from above, meaning our actions down here affect what God wants to do. And so when we uplift and revive the spirit of a pauper, of a poor person, the Shekhinah, the spirit of the Shekhinah is also elevated. Okay? So as he says over here, and he says like this, and he says, this applies whenever you give any charity. And he adds, especially when people offer voluntarily to sustain the inhabitants of the actual land of Israel. For Israel, the geographical land of life corresponds to the heavenly land of life, Malchut of itself. So he says, mystically, Israel is not just a land where the Israelis have figured out how to grow things, but the land of Israel is the original land of life, the original land of the Shekhinah. So if any tzedakah uplifts the Shekhinah, surely charity to the land of Israel will uplift the Shekhinah even more, will uplift the divine presence even more. And he says, the Daila Maven, this will suffice for those who understand. And I don't know if we can count ourselves amongst those. We're not also mystically high, but we get the idea. And then he adds, now whoever is enlightened as to so great and wondrous a matter, the cosmic dynamic traced above, whereby an act of tzedakah, charity, draws down a supernal life from the blessed Ein Sof to animate the exiled Shekhinah. So he says, if someone contemplates this idea that through giving charity, and especially to Israel, you can draw down supernal life from God's infinite life down to the exiled Shekhinah, we'll discover and appreciate how profound are the words of the sages of blessed memory when they said everything is judged according to the multiplicity of action. In other words, like this. The elevation of the Shekhinah happens whether you're giving $1 or $1,000. Drawing down that divine light happens no matter how much money you're giving. And therefore, now there's a reason not just to give a lot of charity, which is necessary, but to give every single day, because every single time you do it, you are bringing more divine light into this world. And I just want to add, of course, I would, of course, say if we're giving, so in my opinion, charity to Israel does two things now. Not only are we giving them what they need physically, but if spiritually there's more divine presence, that means there's a greater divine presence in the land of Israel, and God should protect them. And there will be I should say, a greater revelation of God's protection, right? We know God is always there. But God forbid, when we're attacked, what does that mean? God's presence is in hiding. God is hidden. We don't see him. Vanochi haster aster, right? The word Esther means hidden. God says, sometimes I hide my face. God is always there. But unfortunately, the last couple of days, he's been very hidden. There are stories of miracles. I posted one on Facebook. But on a whole, he's been very hidden. And we want to elicit from above a revelation of godliness. We want God to reveal himself and say, I am here to protect my people. And so giving charity will not only help the battalions get the things they need and the people get the food they need, but spiritually, this is why I'm showing you this letter, it will spiritually reveal godliness. And what does it mean when God is revealed in the land of Israel? Is that his protection will be more revealed. And so that's why there's this need for us to give charity to Israel. I'm explaining here not just to give large amounts, but also to try and give as often as we are able to, whether it's weekly, monthly, or daily, but to keep thinking of ways of giving, because the benefit is twofold. This is what I'm trying to explain here today. It's not only a benefit because it's a mitzvah, and a benefit because you're actually giving them things they need. But on a spiritual basis, you are going to reveal God's Shekhinah in the land of Israel. And when God's Shekhinah is revealed there, they will be protected. Amen. Let's just, we're almost on the letter. Even though the bar on the side looks long, it's not as long as like comments at the bottom of the article. Okay. So it says like this. This refers to the act of charity, which is performed numerous deeds, thereby eliciting the supreme form of life, the life that derives from the infinite fountain of life, by repeatedly bringing about the supreme unification of Kutabich and Shekhinah. In short, he's saying every time you give tzedakah, you're drawing down from the divine light into the Shekhinah, into the divine presence, which is in exile. This is similar to what Maimonides wrote in praise of the repeated giving of tzedakah to refine the nefesh, to refine your soul. Just as personally, when you give charity multiple times, it refines your soul. Spiritually, each time we give charity, it creates a greater bond and connection and greater life in the Shekhinah. I'm going to skip some of this. And now he's going to say like this. And this, once we've read this, now we can understand the spiritual understanding of why our sages say that charity is great because it brings the redemption, right? It says charity is a great mitzvah because it brings the redemption in. I think it was a discussion in a Talmud. It was saying, you know, which mitzvah should I do? And it says, if you have an option, do charity because charity brings the Mashiach closer. Well, every mitzvah brings the Mashiach closer. Why specifically charity? And now we understand our answer. If giving charity brings a greater revelation of the Shekhinah, a greater revelation of the divine presence, well, when the divine presence will be fully revealed, that is the coming of Mashiach, right? As he says, by raising the Shekhinah from the dust, by gradual stages with every act of tzedakah, until Shiloh will come, until Mashiach comes, that explains why we have to give charity multiple times, because each time we do it, we uplift the Shekhinah, and of course, ultimately, when we bring the Shekhinah, when we uplift the Shekhinah will be revealed, and that will be the coming of the Mashiach, made happen speedily in our days. We're going to end off here with the appendix that they write here. We're not going to read it all, but we're going to read the beginning. I just want to point out, no, it's too long. Yeah, Tzemach Tzedek basically explains that though the reward for one large contribution is greater, our sages here seek to reassure us that even modest increments add up and become equally worthy of a superior reward. I want to point out the Rabbi, though, did explain, is I don't want anybody to walk away from here and say, well, Israel right now needs lots and lots of money, but since I want to give in multiple stages, I'll hold on to it. This is not a statement of saying if you have the money right now, you should hold on to it. Okay. If anything, that was the beginning. The beginning says you should give charity with alacrity. What it is saying is that we should give and give again and give again. And as we get more money, we should give again and never think that we've given enough. Obviously hold on to a couple pennies, but I think one good way of doing it is finding multiple charities that are doing multiple things in Israel and, spreading it around. And that way you give multiple times to all the different organizations that needs. But again, if you know of a very specific need and you have the money and you can help them out, none of this is to say you should refrain from giving charity because you want to gain the benefit of giving them multiple times. What it is saying is you should always give as quickly as you can. And in fact, when he was talking to his students back then, that was actually the idea. They were thinking of holding on to their money, giving a big lump sum at the end of the year. And he's trying to tell them, no, don't wait till the end of the year. If you have some money now, give it now. And you have another money in 2 weeks, give it then. Another money too. Don't hold on to it and give the big sum at the end. As you get the money, you give it with alacrity. And so hopefully I've inspired all of you with all the different reasons, or I should say the Alter Rebbe has inspired all of you with the reasons why we want to give charity. Number one, with alacrity. We want to give with alacrity. All mitzvahs should be done quickly to show our eagerness, but especially we learned from Abraham, alacrity is important, but especially the mitzvah of tzedakah, which we know is equal to all of the mitzvahs, and the mitzvah of tzedakah can protect. And surely in this case, we need protection and saving from death. Additionally, we explain the spiritual idea behind charity, that just as charity physically uplifts a poor person, the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is in exile. And unfortunately, the exile is very strong right now. We don't see the divine presence in the protection land of Israel. And when we give charity, we draw down more divine light, and the Shekhinah is uplifted, and we should, God willing, see more of the divine presence, and we will see more of the divine presence. Well, God will reveal himself with protection for our brethren for our fellow Jews and non-Jews in the land of Israel. Unfortunately, we saw that many non-Jews lost their lives as well. Actually, when I was in Israel in March, I went to Kibbutz Alumim, that's on the border of Gaza. It's one of the towns that was overrun. I saw that there were like 10 Thai workers that were working the farms there. When I was there, we saw them that were killed working those farms. Just innocent people just working to make a living to pay for their families back in Thailand, and they were killed as well for no reason. So we want protection in the land of Israel for everybody, Jews and non-Jews alike, and we pray for a speedy end to this, and may we hear very good news very soon.